Ta-da!
Frank is very insistent that I give him fair warning.
Okay.
You just did.
What?
You just warned
I
them.
just warned them. Okay, it's 7:30, or excuse me, 6:30. I'm gonna do that forever and a year. And so I call the October 21st Planning Board meeting to order. First on the agenda are the minutes of October 14th.
Madam Chair, the minutes of October 14th were revised on comments from two board members, and they've been submitted to the planning office, so I recommend approval.
Approval as revised. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And there are no A&R plans. So, we move on to the planning board recommendations for the 2015 excuse me, annual fall town meeting, the zoning articles. And we have Article 5. Yes. Okay, we have Article 5 that there has been some confusion over that needs to have some further revision.
Right. So we can go over here.
Yes, please, Brian, I think you could do it well.
At your last meeting, you voted a recommendation on Article 5 as printed. In your package, you'll have a revised recommendation. And you'll also have a reference here to Chapter 184 of the sign code, kind of the reason we're doing this. In your article, in your recommendation as printed, you'll see in paragraph 1, you will be deleting section 240-185A, B, and C in their entirety. The new recommendation is that you don't delete 240-185C. You leave that alone because that C section references membership of the design review committee. Section under chapter 184, and I've given you, you'll see under paragraph B, membership. It says the design review committee shall be the same as in section 240-185 of the 240 zone. I did that 20-something years ago because I didn't want to have two design review committees, one under the sign code, one under the zoning bylaw. I forgot. So to clean up this little nicety, so we don't implicate the council thinks we implicate or place into doubt the existence of the design review committee under the sign bylaw if in fact we eliminate 240-185C. I'd ask the board to consider that and revise their recommendation to the town meeting to leave section C. So there'd be no doubt that we don't expunge the design review committee or implicate the design review committee in the sign.
I have one of you, Brian. Right now it's A, B, and C, but since we're keeping C, do we somehow delete C also, or when it's just typed up, does C just disappear?
Now someday we'll go back to the town meeting. We'll amend the sign bylaw so it references with the membership in the design review committee and clean this up a little bit. But C will reside in the zoning bylaw.
Just as C, because it's going to be like, wait, what happened to A and B?
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. It'll just say design review committee membership. And then the sign code will reference section 185, which will see membership of the design review committee. We're doing this in an overabundance of caution.
Yeah.
We'll go back at the April town meeting and it's somewhat clear.
Okay. So, are there any further questions of Brian from what he's just said? Yes, Jim.
Why can't we just change it to A and be done with it? We can't do that? Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Simplest and easiest thing to do is just take out section A, section B, it becomes you folks. We'll leave C, membership in the design review committee, only for the sake of the sign bylaw. It's the simplest thing we can place in front of the town meeting.
Otherwise, it gets a little
Once
convoluted.
I start getting convoluted, right, change C to
You have
A.
to change this sign bylaw, correct?
We just go back in April to the summer.
Remember how we do sometimes, we do clean up things, well, this is like a hanging thing that, say, wait, it's just a cleanup too, and what.
And Mr. Calfee of the design committee brought this up, that if there was, if places in doubt, then if it makes folks be reassured, it's an easy switch of your recommendation.
Okay, any further questions or comments on this? Then we have to vote again on recommending as it is now printed.
So it would be, your vote would be to recommend Article 5 as recommended in the warrant.
Yeah. Okay, could I have,
I move Article 5 as recommended in the warrant.
okay,
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. So, that takes care of that. And now we move on to, there were no changes in the light industrial C district recommendation. That's fine the way it is. Okay, so we're on to the Article 10, amending the light industrial C zoning.
And just one little scrivener's error to the board, so you see under the conditions here, 1, 2, 3, 5. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4.
4, okay. Okay. And these are changes based upon our discussion last time. Right here. Yes, Bob?
When I reviewed this article, I noticed that there appeared to me something missing, and that is the operation of this facility. And I looked at the DEP regulations, 19207, and the handling facility operation and maintenance requirements. I'd like to add a paragraph from that to this particular bylaw to reinforce the fact that it's important to have the proper operation. And what I propose we do would be to add after, line 10, the next to last line, where it begins the following requirements, I would like to insert a paragraph at that point and add, the contractor shall incorporate procedures and practices in accordance with approved plans and permit conditions, which will prevent pollution of groundwater, surface water, and air quality, and prevent dust, odors, noise, and other nuisance conditions from developing.
That's from the state.
And that's from the state, 310 CME, paragraph 19207, general.
Any other extra copies?
Well, Paul passed this down.
I don't
But
Books
doesn't
that-
Well, I can-
include everything?
I'll have to read, there's another thing in there.
Yeah, I noticed you had a number of other changes. He has a few other changes in there too.
Okay.
Where do you add it?
At the very end.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
The red.
I believe that's normal practice, but it would be important to emphasize that fact as well. I think it would also help pass on town meeting floor.
So that is out of that 310 CMR.
Sorry?
That is out of the Massachusetts General Laws 310 CMR? Is it? Because we're referencing that here, but it's good to reiterate.
Is it from the 310 CMR?
Yes.
You drew it out of that, okay.
I mean, the question is it the same as number 4? Where it's being referenced?
Well, that's the meanings, 310 CMR. That's a different, this is 240, I'm sorry, this is 310 CMR, but it's a different paragraph, 1900. This is 19207, so it's a subset of that. And it just
Right.
emphasized the need to do that. I think it's important to mention that.
Okay.
And I agree with you.
Is that a
Yes.
motion?
Sorry?
Are you making a motion to amend
Well, I bring it up as a discussion point.
Because
and if
we don't
there's-
have a motion yet.
No, we do not have a motion at this time.
So it's sort of out of context, but by my,
Go, please, Brian, yes.
it's sort of, I understand what you're trying to do. But it's out of context with you're essentially putting a condition in here. Where, under the zoning bylaw, we're trying to at least identify what the use of the property is. This is certainly something you can do, Paul, as a condition of a special permit. I think it's a little out of context with what we're trying to do, which is identify what the use is and what it's constituted of. So when you say the operator shall incorporate procedures and practices in accordance with approved plans, that's more of a condition, and we don't know what those plans are. So I see what you're saying, but I think we're covered there because of you have the requirements of the special permit, and you can certainly, in your decision, incorporate any reference to a CMO. I think it's probably where it belongs, rather than, but it's good, it's a nice spot, it's good. That's my recommendation.
I have a question.
Sure, yeah.
Would that then relate to all those other ideas and conditions such as screening and setbacks and?
Correct, that's why I have my notes from your last meeting, and there are references to buffer and screening, but that's subject to your site plan review, from your special permit. But we did pick up, the size of lots, it's 5 acres, not in a water resource zone. Those are the types of things you can put into the bylaw. But I think the language that we just saw here tonight, if you wanted to incorporate it, I think it needs to change, but I think you're covered in your special permits. You can state that, all your conditions, you could state that all operations must comport with CMR.
Yeah, we will, I think I'd like to expand on this just a bit, Brian, because when we specifically mention particular things, we tend to be more generic in our bylaws, because when we specifically mention certain things, they can change.
And you reference it there in condition in your general condition number 3. Any site granted special permit shall further be subject to the requirements of Mass DEP, all that. That's there, so it's intimated there. But I think this language can certainly be a condition of approval.
Yes, Ralph?
Well, then why don't we say, as the first portion of Paul's ad, begin the sentence by saying, conditions of this special permit will address, well, let's see, conditions of the special permit will ensure the operator shall incorporate, let's see, conditions of this special permit will incorporate procedures and practices. There we go. Conditions of this special permit will incorporate procedures and practices in accordance with blah, 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 blah. That way we know that that we don't have to remember the next board 20 years from now doesn't have to remember the fact that the special conditions will incorporate these procedures and practices. Why don't we put that in there and say conditions of the special permit will incorporate these procedures and practices?
Well, let me try to wordsmith that for you. I would try to bang it out here tonight.
Yeah.
If that's what you want in the body of the bylaw, then I'll take that language and find the right spot and the right verbiage for it. It probably belongs in further down as another, right now, the lot should be 5 acres, not required, not permitted in a water resource district. I'll probably expand upon number 3, the requirements of the Massachusetts. I'll probably try to incorporate that language there.
In the new number 4, we're saying all terms and conditions of 240-64-5. Right?
Those are terms and definitions.
Right.
That you see down here, a handling facility, commercial solid waste. That reference.
So they're not conditions.
Correct. So if you want to expand on, for the purposes of the bylaw, its general principles and conditions, I would expand on number 3, which is references, issues, requirements of the Department of Environmental Protection. Is where that should reside, and I'll work on that for the board.
Yeah, I really do sort of agree with what Paul is trying to accomplish, because, 20 years down the road, we have these questions that come up, and nobody knows what was meant. But, are there any other comments on
Yeah,
this?
Pat?
Yes, Paul.
I think the bylaw should stand by itself. I don't think it should send you back to a particular provision of a state regulation. And what's being said here is normal practice. I mean, a operator is going to generally follow these same practices. And by emphasizing it, I think you address the importance of what the neighbors are concerned about and how this should be operated in accordance with the Commonwealth laws. So I don't see it's particularly onerous on anyone. I think whoever runs a particular facility would probably follow these same procedures anyway. So I don't think it's anything new or onerous that would make it difficult for someone to operate. I think it just clarifies it, not only for the purpose of the bylaw, but for purposes to get the bylaw approved at town meeting.
Fine. We'll keep working on them all, it's fine. I just have more like textual than content. Where it belongs and how it should reside. So you can do that.
Doug?
Do you think that we could discuss and maybe just pencil something in tonight? You think that's too difficult?
Yeah, it is.
If you're looking to make a recommendation that gets printed in the warrant, what you vote tonight, I'm actually going to be going upstairs and typing into the computer and sending it to the finance committee. My recommendation really is don't rush it. Because you can always have an insert in the warrant that gets mailed out to all the town meeting members. Or, if you have to, you make a recommendation on town meeting floor. I'd rather you got it right and be able to make a presentation, as Paul says, and have it pass, because you're working hard on it, than to rush it. And if the board members are uncomfortable with not having more clarity or referencing back to permits you reference, I suggest we work on some. You've done that before.
Okay, again.
So if the board feels that they want to add this, then we can't go forward with this at this point, correct? We'll have to have another special meeting to have a vote on this.
No, you're going to be meeting again on the 5th. Town meeting's on the 7th.
Today's the last day that it can go in, printed as recommended.
Printed as recommended in the warrant. It doesn't mean that, once the warrant will get mailed out probably Friday the 7th, right, of November. By then I'll have something that has an insert and it gets mailed to the town meeting. We've done that before. If you're still not done, then we have passed motions out at the town meeting. And the town meeting members, I can get these in advance, but it's not like we're being slothful. I think we're trying to be deliberate. The board is trying to be deliberate and get it right. And the town meeting members would appreciate that more than bringing them something in the warrant and then having to bring in another motion on town meeting.
Okay, I have a question, Brian. Since all these superscript ones down here seem to be definitions that help us understand.
Right, they will not be part of the motion. Those
Okay.
are there for your use tonight. because number 4 references all terms or definitions shall have the same meaning as that CMR. That's just there for you folks.
Okay.
It won't be as part of the motion. If it comes up at town meeting, we'll have a PowerPoint presentation that's ready to say with these definitions.
Do you feel that any of these should go into eventually the definitions in our bylaws? Okay.
Just like we reference other definitions to CMRs, implicated state limits. You don't want to change our zoning bylaw when the state decides it's going to change its definition.
That's why I'm asking the question.
We always control.
Are there any other comments on this on the board? Because Brian will take our comments back and put them in. Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, fourth line down on the beginning of this, where it starts by special permit. It says, waste is brought, sorted, stored, and/or transferred. So I initially wrote in the word temporarily stored. But then, when you go to the definition of stored, in the second page, it says temporary containment. So I guess it would be redundant to put the word temporary in there, so I've pretty much satisfied myself that I didn't have to put that in there. However, these definitions aren't always available to us, and to when, like I said, 10 years from now, and you're reading this, and you say that, oh, gee, it can be stored, but without looking at the definition of stored meaning temporary containment, you might think like, well, I can store these things as long as I want. So the word temporary, under the definition, really has an impact on that sentence. For, say, a contractor in the future could say, hey, I can go ahead and store this stuff, and there's no limit on it, because they don't have the definition of storage, and these definitions came from where, Brian?
These are right from the state regulations, the 310 CMR.
Okay, so then you'd have to say, okay, well, you'd have to look up the definition from the state regulations as to what storage means. So I don't know, I'm just throwing this at you, everybody. And then when you're talking about in the first in the second definition, starting with commercial solid waste, etc. You then look into the back of the second page, and you see what commercial organic material is, and waste, and does waste include that? I just can't get my head around all of these definitions, because commercial solid waste means all types of solid waste generated by stores, institutions, restaurants. Okay, solid waste coming out of a restaurant. When you go to the second page and you look, commercial organic material means food material and vegetative material from any entity, which would be a restaurant, generates more than 1 ton of these materials for solid waste disposal per week. So, you have situations where maybe maybe a restaurant generates 3/4 of a ton of solid waste per week. And now you can, going back to the definition of to the bylaw, you're saying that it includes non-compostable bulky commercial solid waste. And, it's just, it's very confusing, I think, to put all of these, to try and match all of these definitions together and keep the bylaw itself user-friendly. It's not easy. And I give you all the credit in the world, Brian, for trying to figure it out. I'm having a hard time with it.
All right, well, to help the board members get around it, I realize it's something we haven't had before. If each word here, where it says where solid waste, bulky waste, commercial solid waste, recyclable material, each one of those terms is defined in the 310 CMR 19. I checked them all off, so they're all there. It's extremely difficult, I understand, for a layperson to get their heads around this. But my sense is you're not going to see a flood of applications. Typically speaking, the person who's going to be applying for the special permit is going to be represented by engineers and council. And I realize it's good to have the public be able to understand this and tell me to understand this. That's why we have all those definitions. But for the user-friendly part of it, for the applicant, they're usually covered. We can only try our best to try to explain it to the public in general. Have information that they can assimilate, information they can take home and look at, understand, have their own people, experts, son-in-laws, explain to them what it is that the applicant is attempting to do. It is very difficult to put in 25 words or less exactly what it is. We try to do our very best, but otherwise, the section of the bylaw, once it starts expanding beyond a page, it'll fall. So you have to find that balance there. But I fully appreciate, the struggles the board and the public would have. But I think it's pretty concise. You can always reference back to those definitions. If you ever have a question, the general public was asking us. We'll try to answer it for you to the best of our ability. So long as I know every word in there is defined and is subject to certain threshold questions like acreage, and a special permit that may issue, a lot of these details tend to sort themselves out.
Did you say these definitions will be in the warrant book or not?
They won't be part of the motion.
Yeah.
I'll have them as a presentation if the question comes up. Because
I'm guessing there will be questions, that's all.
That's a fair question. But we'll have four here, all terms and definitions reference the CMR. I'll work on 3 to reference the conditions of approval.
I think adding one more word there, temporarily stored, would be good, just to make it clear at town meeting.
Can you point that out, please?
That's the
Fourth line down. Waste is brought, sorted, and then temporarily stored. Even though the word stored means temporarily, I think that's right, Doug. I think we should put it in there.
I have a far more serious concern about this bylaw. Ever since we've been talking about this, the struggle was on the definition of solid waste. And I think we've gone a long way to try to define it. And I've looked at a lot of different ways at cutting this. And historically, what we've been talking about is that facility would receive construction debris, paper, inert objects, which would be stored there for a period of time and then moved off-site. Now, the concern I've had all along is by not defining very carefully what that waste is, we open ourselves to a lot of different things. Last night, at the health board meeting, there were a lot of people talking about their concerns, particularly with the restaurant waste and things of that nature. And, after thinking about this quite a bit today, I think there's a very simple way of dealing with all those issues. And that would be to allow the things that are in here, with the exception of combustible materials. For example, in the line as you go down with combustible materials, commercial organic materials, and compostable bulky waste, if we added not be brought or composted on site, that whole issue goes away. The people concerned about odors, rats, and those kinds of things, if they're not bringing in restaurant waste to that facility, it eliminates that whole issue. And it still allows for a lot of material to be stored there from various parts of the Cape and to still operate as this applicant seems to want to do. So I would suggest we think a little bit about whether we really want to collect organic or restaurant waste at that facility and temporarily store it there, because it opens up a whole range of issues that I'm not sure we're ready to deal with.
But unfortunately, that's exactly where waste is headed right now. So we'd be throwing a monkey wrench into the plans of, commercial hauling operators' objective. They're just now starting to become aware of the importance of recycling that waste and composting. And I know people would have concerns, but I don't think they're really valid concerns. This stuff's moving all the time. It's not like it's just sitting there like a pile of trash.
I would almost guess that half of every trash that's removed out of the town is combustible. I mean, even cardboard, it breaks down and stuff, so you're kind of like saying it wouldn't even be a bylaw for the purpose if you put that in there.
Not combustible, it's compostable.
But I mean, even cardboard is broken down, that's what I meant. That's recycled, but I'm just saying, trash, garbage, everything, that's what we're going to, and like you said, so you'd basically be limiting half of the stuff that would be normally picked up in any dumpster.
I think composting is something that's been done historically in lots of different places. I really don't share Paul's concern, as long as all the other issues he brought up about the methods that were used to control it, about smell, dust, and everything else. I think that, to me, that covers my concerns. And I think we're going too far in trying to control. We need a place. The state's mandating changes in our waste streams all the time, and it's getting more and more difficult, and we need to have a place for our businesses to handle it. And if they can't handle it here, where it's going to go? Where is it going to go? Where is the space going to go? I mean, I think to have it in a location that follows all the state rules, policies, and procedures is the right way to go.
Yeah, I do believe, I agree with that if you're following all the state rules, that is what needs to be done. And a well-operated composting facility is very good, I think, for what we need here on the Cape.
I agree with Jim too, and things are getting more stringent. There are cities and towns throughout the country that are requiring food waste to be separated now and composted.
Right.
But I know people have been fined for throwing food waste in with their regular trash. In fact, there's one, I think it's Seattle, where the trash haulers are actually going through the bags and people are getting fined for it.
The only thing that really causes problems is meat.
Is what?
Meat, that attracts the vermin. But anything else, table scraps, is fine.
The issue really is not flying in the face of the state mandate to recycle restaurant waste and so forth. It's just, do you deal with it at this particular facility under this particular bylaw, or does it go somewhere else? We're allowing virtually everything else here except residential trash. And the question is this the appropriate place to have organic, biodegradable waste within the town of Falmouth? It goes somewhere else right now.
Again, just to help the board consider this, it does say may. It's compostable materials, including commercial organic material, and compostable bulk waste may be brought to the site. So that means the board has it in its discretion when it gets the permit level for the applicant to demonstrate that they can address your concerns. But it's not a by right issue.
Well, this is one of the reasons I believe that we've also kept it as special permit. So it just isn't by right.
So that helps allay some concerns.
Jim?
My understanding that there's other organizations that collect food waste scrap and compost it on their property now, under normal composting in an agricultural zone. I mean, I believe it happens, we ask, where is it going to go? I think we're already doing it in many locations.
My backyard's doing it. It
Well-
has been for about 40 years. Well,
Yeah, Paul, would you please restate your suggestion here? I want to listen to it once more.
You mean in reference to the state regulation?
Where you said there's a simple way to resolve this. What was your suggestion?
The sentence that begins compostable materials, and I was just suggesting you say may not be brought to the site or composted on the site. And that eliminates the
Instead
issue.
of may be, but may not.
And that would eliminate the whole issue of odors and
I
vermin
see,
and
okay,
everything
okay,
else.
all right.
Now, if the board doesn't consider that appropriate, then we can discuss it further. But it seems to eliminate a lot of the concerns that neighbors expressed last night and a lot of the issues we've had before. And
It would be what's known as a categorical exclusion. I don't think you want to categorically exclude it, Paul. If it turns out that they can't satisfy your concerns as a special permit granting authority, I think then you have reasonable evidence to base it on, hopefully. But when it's categorically excluded, that means that's it. You have no authority to allow it. I'm not sure you want to tie your hands that way. But again, a discussion for the board. My sense is that it's something that you can handle at the permit level, rather than the bylaw level. But again, your call.
Ralph?
Yeah, Brian, you said that the word may leaves us some discretion, and it's not a by right word, and I'm having trouble with that. I was wondering if there's a different word that we could put in there, because if I were to read this as a contractor, I would assume then that compostable materials, commercial organic material, and compostability of bulky waste may be brought to the site. I would think that, I would hope there's a different word that we could put in there that would indicate that the planning board would have more discretion on that particular sentence. Is there another word we could put in there?
I can work on it for you. It might be that you, at the end of the sentence, comma, at the discretion of the board. As part of the special permit. But I think it's.
Yeah, but then, yeah, now we're getting down in conditions again.
Right.
Yeah, so we're
So, yeah,
spinning our wheel.
The may be brought. Is actually at the discretion of the applicant. Turn it 180 degrees. What if you put the word shall be brought? Then you're commanding the applicant, you shall bring these wastes in. And then defeats sort of the purpose and would tie your hands as part of the special permit. So may is the is a discretionary word, not permissive. And I'm not sure what else I can do for you, but I will work on it some more.
And that's me. I'm nitpicking there, but it just just feels to me like that's more of a by right word.
All right,
Yeah.
then, what kind of,
The way I always learned English is may is the more loose word, and shall is the command.
And it's a pretty common word in the bylaws.
Right. It means you don't have to give.
But I
that.
think, I know, but the word leads me to believe that it's acceptable. And it may not be acceptable under
And
special
that's what the
permit.
special permit would determine.
Whether it is acceptable or not. I believe, if I'm recalling right, I'm gonna look right at Mr. Cavosa, okay, in making this statement, and we're not taking comments, but I believe it was portrayed to us that composting of these things currently is ongoing on the site. And I believe we have had no complaints about it. So if you will recall back to the original discussion, it was portrayed to us that these materials are already under the contractor permit that he's operating under, being composted on the site.
It's actually, you can just do it by right because it's agricultural land now. He doesn't want to lose that ability.
So I don't see a problem with this. And,
I don't either.
I mean, you read anywhere about composting and you do not put meat products in a compost because that pulls in the rats and other vermin. Yes, Jim?
Well, because it is under special permit, which triggers 24216, which has a whole list of things that I think give the neighbors protection, and whether or not it is more detrimental to the neighborhood, I'm very comfortable with our already special permits procedures, and although I think this is well-intended, I think it gets way too deep into how to run a facility.
Madam Chair, just have a clarification to the board.
Okay.
The definition of solid waste, just to clarify, includes household waste as well. Okay, so I heard, I think earlier, that it did not include household waste, so I just want to make sure that the board is aware that all the definitions we're using are linked to the DEP regulations, which I believe is the way the board would want to go, because if the definitions change, then you don't have to be changing your bylaw.
Right.
Plus, any applicant under this section of the bylaw would have to apply to the state to get a permit, as well as to this board.
Thank you for that clarification, Jeff. That, I thought was pretty well brought out here. But there is something that says not household waste, but I don't know exactly what
That's
it.
where the definition of commercial solid waste.
Yeah,
It just means that residential waste isn't commercial.
isn't commercial,
It
that's,
doesn't
but,
exclude one or the other,
yeah,
it's defining it.
exactly, it's defining it.
And I agree, it's not commercial.
But you default back to the state definition and the state laws in any case, and there is the reason exactly that the state changes. And you don't want to have to go and rewrite your bylaw every time you turn around, or the state turns around. Is there anything further on this, and then, okay,
I'm comfortable with it, with the exception of the change to number 3 that we
right.
discussed.
And
fine
also
with
I
everything
think that
else. And
temporarily.
then temporary, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm comfortable with that as well.
okay. So I sense a comfort level on the board here with those changes that we can at that point recommend at the town meeting. Is that,
I feel like that, yeah.
so, I've got the word temporary between the words sorted and stored.
Changing number 5 to number 4.
Yeah.
No.
and, in your dreams. And amending 3 and changing the number 5 to number 4. You were going to amend 3 to something, weren't
So
you?
does the board want to try to work through this, to get it done, to get it out to the town meeting? We can work on number 3 right now.
I would love to do that,
If
And I think we should.
because it always seems like when you go to town meeting with a last minute thing. Then even though you thought it through more, it seems like you thought it through less, because you're less prepared.
So,
Excuse me, I'll make this too.
what I guess we should do is, I have.
Oh, you have, it, okay.
Boom, 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 boom. You know, the simplest thing to do is just add that language to the end of 3.
Okay.
I guess, just say 3, any site granted special permit shall further be subject to the requirements of Mass DEP, comma, and the operator shall incorporate procedures and practice in accordance with those approved plans and permit conditions, meaning DEP. Well, actually, the site, here. So just include,
I'm sure you have a copy of
yeah.
what it is the board is looking
I
at.
don't, because it's different from what I have here in my hand.
So why don't I, so why don't we add a new one, 5? You just say, the lot shall have not 5 acres, shall not be put in more resource districts. Any site granted is required to DEP. We will use their definitions. And I guess to make it a bylaw, I guess no special permit may issue, well, I don't know, why don't we take 5 minute break?
That's fine.
If you want, I
Yeah.
can converse with Attorney Oppenheim and get right back to you.
Good idea.
Well, take a recess.
5-minute recess, guys. Bang.
Bang.
I didn't really get to see it. Did you have the copy of that? A copy of it?
I only made 2 copies, I should have made more.
That's okay.
I could run out.
thought Jeff had. Before he talked about
Are we back?
it. Not quite.
We're not live yet.
Oh, right, he knows.
Is he still filming this?
No.
No, we're in
we take a
recess.
break now. So I gotta wave my gavel at him.
We've done this before. We're trained before.
I didn't take any photos.
Breaking news, planning board so confused, they have to take a break.
Don't feed him the story.
No, we've done this before in the past. We take a break, we sit down, and we finish the and come back.
Are we okay?
It's not that often.
Have you had enough time? Okay. So I wave my gavel. Okay, we're reconvening the meeting.
All right, so
Brian?
I would recommend to the board that we add 5.
Okay.
Take your time and listen, write it down, and we'll discuss it, make sure one's good. 5, no special permit may issue unless the applicant incorporates procedures and practices in accordance with 310 CMR 19.207. What that does, Paul, that references, that section with regards to handling facilities, which is taken verbatim from the CMR, which is your language here. So you simply add it as a 5th special permit. We've added as a 5th special permit decision. That you must specifically look at that you must specifically look at that 310C. That means the planning board must look at that 310 CMR and incorporate the practice, the procedures and practices that prevent pollution, groundwater, surface water, and air quality. All that's referenced there, but short to. Paul, yeah, see what I'm saying?
You happy with it, Paul? It's a board decision.
It should be nice for unanimous vote.
Well, the problem I have with that, quite frankly, is when you're reading it, particularly at town meeting, you don't know what that is, and nobody's going to look it up. In fact, when I started looking at these, I looked at definitions, and I couldn't even pull it up on my computer. I had to go to the library, so I looked at definitions, and it referred me to another chapter, which referred me to another chapter, and it's kind of a Where's Waldo type game. So there's some value in putting it in there, but I think it's a reference that's important.
It's a reference, Paul, so, because those practices and procedures might change. I'm doing it differently than I did with regards to those definitions. So let's just say DEP adds a requirement. You don't have to go back to the bylaw and change your automatically. Well, the downside is that they can lay out, but you can always make up for that, anything that's deleted because somebody got your special permit. But if something comes in, the planning board must incorporate. So you have that advantage by making it a reference. If there are, obviously this is a complicated bylaw that references other CMRs. Remember with the wind energy systems, it is strewn with state and federal requirements. And we had quite a PowerPoint presentation to make sure at least I was, and Pat were, confident that we could explain this exactly what it is we're asking town members for. So I now know that 310 CMR 19207 references handling facilities for solid waste facilities. And we'll have something prepared. I think it's the way to go, that this, try to see the static language.
When we do a presentation at town meeting, we tend to proactively put these things up in the PowerPoint, and we know that there will be questions, so that it's not as confusing as it might be.
Listing it like that is what I was looking at when you brought it up, because like Ralph thought about it, boards later, that is going to require any boards to go to the new one. So if you issue one this board, but 3 years later there's another one that comes up, you've got to go to that current one and review it before you make any decision. So,
Are you planning a PowerPoint on this?
Most likely so. We haven't started putting it together yet because we haven't had this together yet. And Brian and I will generally start, 2-3 weeks before town meeting when there's a complex issue, putting it together. He comes at it from a professional viewpoint, and I come at it from my viewpoint that if I can be satisfied and understand it, I think town meeting members can be satisfied and, well, maybe not satisfied, but they can understand it. And then they vote what their understanding is. So we have to be very careful that people who have technical understanding don't make assumptions.
So what you have, the word temporarily stored. And you add condition 5. And I'll read it again. It's no special permit may issue unless the applicant incorporates procedures and practices in accordance with 310 CMR 19.207. May or shall. No special permit may issue unless the applicant incorporates procedures and practices in accordance with 310 CMR 19.207.
I understand the language
Could be shall.
too, because in this case it could be shall. Because that's more, that says, hey, we aren't going to issue it unless we have no reasoning that has to appear on it. Then
shall means you have to do it.
you have to do it.
They may not want that. You know what I mean? Isn't that the thing? Shall make
Yeah,
it
so if you
requirement?
shall it, you must do it.
Well, I'll indicate in May. Not all of these facilities will have
Composting
It's regards to a handling facility. So stop, no shall issue.
for 2 weeks.
Yes, can.
The shall, I thought meant that you have to have it.
You have to do it.
But if the applicant doesn't want it, isn't it a may that they can or can't do it? Wasn't that the determination?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's what I thought
So
was,
we need to keep it May.
I don't know, but that's my wondering why it wouldn't be me.
No shall issue unless the applicant incorporates procedures in accordance with 310 CMR 207.
And we can make it happen by virtue of the special permit. So we probably should leave it as May.
I would leave it as May.
Didn't want to get into a legal thing.
Not that I want, May is something that, once it's shall,
You have to.
you gotta do it.
Yeah.
And it may not be germane.
Yeah, so I think you're right, Ken, thank you for bringing that up.
Can we move this?
Yeah, are we all happy with this, and we can move it as it currently has been?
I believe so.
Okay, does anybody want to read the whole thing again, or we all know what it is, and we'll move it as it is? Move it in its amended form to the warrant, as it is written here.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move that the town vote to amend Article 13 Light Industrial C Districts of the zoning bylaw by adding the following Section 240-64.5.d as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments on this before we go? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
Unless you give you opposed.
Pardon?
Not soliciting for anyone opposed?
No.
It was a seven.
Not allowed.
I have a procedural question. So the board's recommendation will be what's presented at town meeting,
As recommended.
as
As
recommended.
recommended.
And the board will make the primary presentation.
Yes, the board makes the motion, and then my recommendation to the chairman would be to make a presentation to explain the planning board's motion, so that town meeting members fully understand.
Okay, so the applicant,
Generally says, we are not opposed to that recommendation, or we are in favor of that recommendation.
and not, and does not necessarily, or is not necessarily in a position to make his own presentation, even if he is in support of your recommendation.
It's up to the moderator.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
feel as though it's in your enlightened self-interest to make a presentation, it's up to the moderator.
Thank you.
You might combine it, maybe you would do the presentation and then Mr. Gallotta would speak to it afterwards. I don't know.
I'm sure he would like to speak to it at some point in time.
What we don't want to do in the presentation is load the town meeting down with too much.
We understand.
As you understand.
Right. That being said, I think we have certain expertise on what a transfer station is that might be beneficial to the presentation. Thank you.
That's a good point.
In the past, we've done, your job is to explain your motion. And if there are other questions, it's still a petitioner's article, you can say, I would defer to the petitioner.
Yes, that's what we have done in the past, that I would give the explanation for what we have here, and then I would say that I defer with the moderator's approval to the petitioner to give some further explanation
Okay.
or information, however,
Or the representative.
yeah, or the representative, depending upon which one of you wants to speak.
Perhaps we'll have the benefit of seeing the presentation that the board intends on making prior to town meeting, so we can supplement that.
About a
I
half,
think we can get it together in time, Brian.
it won't be.
Okay, thank you very much.
It doesn't get that complex. As I said, we try to keep it as simple and understandable as possible. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, folks, there is no correspondence. Ralph indicated that there may be some things that he'd like to see on a future agenda, or no, just bringing it up.
No, just,
Because in the past, as long as we don't discuss it, we've sometimes thrown things out that this is what we'd like to see. There's nothing about future agenda items on here, so I guess nobody has any, and that's fine too. And you can always feel free to talk with Brian or Marlene if you see something you'd like to see on a future agenda item. You don't need to bring it up at a board meeting.
Can I
Jim?
bring something up now?
Not that we can discuss,
No, that we can add as a future agenda. I think it's important to look at the housing issue to bring the extra apartment use up as soon as possible.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the low-hanging fruit that could have an impact on all the housing, and then to start the discussion publicly. I know other people want to wait till we finish reviewing the whole housing aspect of it. I think that that one's pretty
That's
easy.
easy beans.
And I think we should get it on the agenda so it can be brought up and discussed in the near future.
Okay.
Is it in-law apartment?
No, this is something else.
Accessory apartments.
Okay.
Accessory, and one of the things that was brought up in the housing, I'm not saying we have to do this, but almost either.
Let's not discuss it,
Okay.
because.
Leave it
we
blank.
can go-
It needs to
we
be
can
brought
go
up.
in and talk
Right,
with-
needs to be
Just wanted to
brought
know
up.
which-
We want to put it on the agenda for discussion. End, right there.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay? And that's why we don't bring things up, because we all tend to discuss,
Right.
including me.
Just bring it up.
Yeah. Okay, our next meeting is November 5th at 6:30, and Jim will be chairing that meeting. And so, I'm going to be enjoying this. No, I'm not. I'm going to be in an airplane, but that's okay. I need a motion to adjourn, please.
And that's a Wednesday.
Yes.
November 5th.
Yeah.
That because it's November, we can't meet on Tuesdays in November. Thank you for
Understand.
mentioning that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.